Hi, everybody. It's Kristianna Mrjenovich, your Second Chance Queen, and tonight I have the absolute honor of interviewing one of my Sash sisters from 2024's Year International Ms. Her name is Mary Dunham. Mary Dunham is former Mrs. Maine International. Her current title is International Mrs. Puerto Rico 2025. She is a professional henna artist for over 30 years, and throughout her career, she's helped women reclaim their bodies through her art. She empowers them to reclaim their bodies, transforming traumas that they've gone through, and has helped cancer patients, women of domestic violence, sexual trafficking, miscarriages, alopecia, and through artistic expression. In her career, she has hennaed over 20,000 women. She's been working with minority groups for 25 years in schools and cultural organizations, bringing the arts to the forefront. She represents being a minority in a primarily white state of Maine, and her focus is to help Black and Indigenous people of color women in her state and across the U.S. Her studio that she created provides a safe space, compassion, and bridges across culture community. She forged her way through a male-dominated career and is a minority Latina tattoo artist in Maine. She's worked as a muralist across the globe in Italy, France, and Jamaica. Please join me in welcoming Mary to the Second Chance Queen podcast. Thank you for joining me on the podcast tonight. I'm super excited to have you, and I would love to hear in your own words what your biggest second chance pivotal moment in your life has been.
I would have to say being reunited with my birth family. So I was adopted and had been on a journey to reconnect with my family. For about 8 years, I searched and it was quite painstaking. And I was born in New York, and at the time in the 70s, adoption was closed, so there was no way for me to get any information. And it was quite a struggle. But when I turned 18, I was able to write the adoption agency for my non identifying information and was able to gather some basic facts about my family. And I started to search myself and tried to be like a detective and go to like the libraries and try to find my mom was like one of six. And so I was like, oh wow, so there's five girls, and so maybe I can find five girls in the age range of when I was born. And I did that, and I was really intimidated to go down the list of the girls that I did find, these young women, and make that phone call like, could you be my mom? And I gave up on my search because that just felt really daunting to go through like 20 names on that list. And then a private investigator reached out to me 8 years later. I was 25 years old. And so I ended up agreeing for her to just look at what I had for my information. And she found my family within a weekend. And so I was 25 years old, and I ended up being reunited with my birth family on September 11th, 2001, the morning of the plane crash in New York City.
Wow. That has to be a very emotional day for you for a lot of reasons. And I know you said you were born in New York, so that's a crazy coincidence too. What did that moment in time feel like? Was it a strange mix of happy and obviously devastated, or how did you process that?
I didn't process that. I was in a real state of shock because, I was 25, and I had, you know, built up this day in my mind that was so monumental, meeting my family, meeting my mom, meeting my dad. And they had a family reunion planned for me to meet all my extended family. It was 1 hour after the planes hit that the party was supposed to start. And I couldn't feel the emotions. I couldn't, I was in shock. The world was kind of upturned. And here I was about to celebrate the most joyous day of my life. And so it was very hard to feel joyful, but at the same time, it was a complete blessing to be with my family on that day.
Do you still feel a bittersweet feeling on that day when that anniversary comes around every year?
Yeah, it's intense, because the dichotomy is on that day, I found my family, and on that day, people were losing their family members.
That
So
is
it was
such a
like,
tragic.
yeah, it was really hard. And the Air Force was flying over my reunion party into the city. So the fighter jets were flying over. And, I definitely was like, yeah, I have like a really hard time processing it still. I've been in reunion now almost 20 years. So the second chance, is the fact that kind of making it a priority in my life to be reunited with my family and learning about who I was as an individual that I struggled with for so long. And then, mending the hearts of my mom and my dad by coming back into their lives. And like, I don't think there's a better moment to kind of allow myself that healing and for them to like find healing themselves.
It is a beautiful story, and although the timing is really tragic, I'm sure it is an extremely healing experience to be able to reunite with them and have conversations and kind of know where you came from, because that's something that a lot of us take for granted, I guess, is if we don't experience the life of someone who's been adopted and we know our family, it's not something that you realize the significance of. So, I mean, I can imagine that that's a very emotional thing for you. I'm guessing that you're still involved with your birth family and have those relationships. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I'm very, very, very close. And actually, one of the reasons why I did my first pageant was to share an experience like that with my birth mother, and she got to come to the pageant. And, it's the little things like, she never got to buy a dress for me for the prom, or she never got to see me go on a first date, or little things like that. And even though I'm older, it was just, and I modeled when I was younger. And I just thought this would be really fun for her to kind of see me compete and her to be a part of everything, and from shoes to dresses to watching me get my makeup done and seeing me on the stage. And we had the best time ever.
That gives me such an interesting, like, perspective now, realizing that that was such a pivotal time for you emotionally. That is so fun to look back on that and know that kind of backstory. So that
Yeah,
is
not very many
really
people did.
cool.
Right, yeah.
That is so exciting. And
Yeah.
we didn't get I mean, we interacted a little bit. I've already explained to the listeners that we're Sash sisters from 2024, but we were like kind of opposite ends of the alphabet. So we didn't get
Right.
it's not like we were standing next to each other. So I didn't really get to I saw your smiling face and we said hi in passing, but we didn't get to really interact at that level. And so hearing that now, like, I have so much joy looking back at that pageant. It's not even me, like, but I feel that for you because I can imagine that that was such a cool experience. And I'm excited that International Ms. kind of got to be that setting
Platform.
too.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah. Even when I had my interview, I was like, can I just go in there and say, like, I'm doing this for my mom? Because, like, I kind of was. Like, I was doing it for us. I was doing it just to share, like, a super bonding moment. And even now, like, today, I was sending pictures to my mom, like, what do you think of this dress for the photo shoot? And she's like, oh, well, I'm going to go tonight and I'm going to take pictures of the new dress stores that I found in my area. And so, like, it's just been really wonderful to kind of like, even though she's in New York and I'm here in Maine, like we get to share these little things every few months. Like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think of that? And yeah, and my dad. And so because the pageant's going to be in New York, my dad's going to be able to be there and a lot of my extended family. So like, I don't know, it is kind of like a little bit of a homecoming for me. So
Especially with it being in September in New York too. That's right around that time frame. I hope that you can kind of rewrite the day that was so tragic and you didn't get that moment that really built up in your head. I hope that this can kind of rewrite that a little bit for you and you can have your big moment on that stage. And I'm just so excited to hear that you're going to have so much support and family that are rooting for you there. That is so amazing. And I love your story and I love that second chance at family. I mean, something that I'm obsessed with about this podcast is the fact that every time I interview a different woman, the second chances are so diverse. I mean, it's literally from like open heart surgery and literally a second chance at life to domestic abuse like mine to a second chance at family with you and having, the adoption history. It's so unique to really realize how many second chances are out there and to also get to hear such a positive story. I mean, adoption is such a huge emotional thing for so many people. It's kind of a hot button topic, and there's so many avenues and different ways that adoption can work out. So seeing you as the woman that you are, and knowing that you're an incredible, empowering woman, but then also getting to hear how you've gotten to build with your family, that's a really exciting thing that I haven't heard of that often. So that's a really cool thing. What message would you give to those that are maybe earlier in their adoption journey that maybe haven't had the option to find their family or are struggling with the emotions? Because I can imagine it affects your mental health at some point.
Only when I was younger, and also just everything about identity, like you said, when you're not adopted, there's so many things that you never think of, like your eyes, your hair, your mouth, your mannerisms, why you look the way you look. So I definitely struggled with my identity and trying to understand who I was as an individual. And I think being adopted is very difficult because you don't want to like betray your adoptive family and you want them to still feel loved and feeling like it's okay to search, it's okay to be curious, it's okay to want to know who you are and like where you come from. And unfortunately, there's no guarantee if it's going to be successful. There's no guarantee if you're going to feel completely welcomed with open arms. So there is still that like uncertainty of like being let down.
I'm sure that's a struggle in itself, is the uncertainty part of that, never kind of knowing. And then when you do find out, how it's going to go. So I didn't even think about the uncertainty part. I have a lot of anxiety just with like normal life. I like to know things. I don't like uncertainty at all. So props to you. That takes a lot of emotional strength to be able to handle that, because I would be an absolute mess, puddle on the floor
Right.
all of the
Yeah.
time. So you're a strong, strong woman for being able to go through that. Are you still in touch with your adoptive family as well? Like, are you able to embrace both sides of yourself essentially?
Yeah, 100%. My adoptive family lives here in Maine. They followed me here when I moved from New York. My adoptive mom passed right before COVID. But, the most beautiful thing that I can say that has happened through my reunion is that, I had both sets of family members at my wedding. So I had my adoptive family and my birth family. They've met multiple times. And just to be in the same room with them, even this summer, birth father came up and hung out with my adoptive dad, and we went boating together. So I am really blessed with that. The ability that my family has been open for me to have reunion and be supportive and really kind of welcome my other family with open arms.
I feel like you have to be one of the most loved people in the world, being able to have your adoptive family and your birth family, and the way they've embraced you is really wholesome. And I'm so happy for you that you get to experience that. That's a really cool concept of that blended family. Would you say that being adopted is like your main catalyst for becoming resilient? Because resiliency is something I talk to women with second chances, it comes hand in hand. So Would you say that that has made you a really resilient person?
Definitely. I think I've had to overcome a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles in life, personally and even geographically. I just think that, like, being a brown woman and being a Latina and, living in Maine, where it's like there's not a lot of diversity, and also just being a tattoo artist and like breaking barriers of a male dominated world. I feel like being able to kind of meet that struggle or the closed door, right? So like, even like, I would say, like, being an adoptee, if you don't have an open adoption, you're faced with a closed door, and you have to keep knocking, and it may not even open, and then you have to reapproach it. And so finding determination and, like, not saying no. Like, I refuse to give up. I refuse the no. I refuse that I can't. I refuse that it's not an option for me. Like, it has to be. So even if it doesn't work out the way I want it to, I'm going to try.
Love that. I feel like you are a woman that has broken down so many doors in your life. I love that analogy, but you kept knocking and broke down the door of finding your adoptive family. Being a brown woman in a predominantly white state, like you said, that's breaking down a door. Being a female tattoo artist, that is breaking down a door. You are a door breaker. Like, that's my affectionate new nickname for you, Mary
I
the
love
Door
that.
Breaker. There's no door left unbroken in
Right.
Mary's life.
Don't put it in front of me.
But I love that. What would you say is your platform? Because you've talked a lot about, your ethnicity and how that is in the state of Maine, the male dominated. You're a very empowering person. So what is your, like, chosen platform, and how did you choose that?
So, I think being a minority, especially here in Maine, where it is not very diverse. I used to work for cultural survival in Boston. I used to work doing a lot of diversity days in schools, and I used to work for a cultural center. You know, I also always never really saw anybody that looked like me in positions within jobs or within the art world, or in tattooing or in movies. Even, it's like being Latina, and wanting to be, like, proud to be biracial, proud to be brown, even though I didn't see anybody around me really looking like me. And so I really started trying to elevate women, BIPOC women, doing body art on them, and, decorating them, photographing them, highlighting their beauty, like talking about their stories, talking about their integrity, and giving them a platform to share their experiences as they walk through the world. And I joined a group of Latinas called Poderistas that's run by America Ferrara and Eva Longoria. And just like, how can I be a part of the sea of women that are out there that are Latin, and bring more awareness to being brown and being Puerto Rican? And Puerto Ricans are black, Puerto Ricans are light skinned, all like range of colors. And so being like Miss Puerto Rico this year has been like so tremendous for me. I'm also Tahino, which is like indigenous Puerto Rican, and a lot of people don't even know what that is. And so it's like just bringing awareness to culture, and allowing it to be celebrated, and for people to feel like it's inclusive. It doesn't have to be other or separate. And I feel like having that platform is really, like, kind of lifting women to feel that they can be whatever they want, and it doesn't have to necessarily be by the color of their skin, but they can see themselves in lots of ways where those doors were never open for them.
Love that concept. And you absolutely are 100% right. Puerto Rico is it's like a melting pot. My best friend growing up through middle school and high school is Puerto Rican, and she was very light skinned. If you looked at her, other than her curls in her hair, she was paler than I am. We used to laugh because she was more pale than me, but she was Puerto Rican. It's such a melting pot, but there's such a rich culture too. And I love that you're representing Puerto Rico and showing that and showing the diversity and highlighting that. That's really cool. And I love something that you said too, where you talked about not seeing women that looked like you and how that feels. It's difficult with confidence. And I kind of can relate to that joining the pageantry world because, as you're aware, coming into the pageantry world, beauty standards are unfortunately still a thing. And we're working to break those beauty standards down. But being a curvier woman in the pageant world, it's definitely a unique feeling walking into a room and being different, not being what they're expecting. And I
Right.
know you can relate to that. We're
Oh,
not, the tall, thin Barbies that people have grown to expect and think that that's all pageantry is. That's why I love International Ms. as a system because it really does celebrate what makes each of us unique and special and allows us to celebrate being ourselves. So I love that about this system. And I love what you mentioned, like you said, being a woman that didn't really see herself represented. And now you are out there representing on an international stage, which is very, very cool. What have you done to become the confident woman that you are, to be able to stand on that international stage at this level and to bring awareness for those women? What would you say has contributed to your confidence and how did you grow that?
well, I've been working with women for 30 years. I've worked with so many women. I'm a Reiki master teacher of 20 years, and I've worked with cancer patients and women that have gone through so much trauma through mastectomies, through chemo, hennaing their bald heads, hennaing their chests, tattooing their chests, being there in hospice and doing healing work in hospice, creating a Reiki program in the hospital and working with women in the NICU through pregnancy. And I think I've met so many women in my career that have gone through their own personal struggles, that finding a way to rise above and champion over and over again, like you have to recreate yourself. And I feel like at some point in your life, you've kind of hit a wall, or you're deciding, I either went through the darkness, or I don't know what's next for me in my career, or I don't know what's next for me in my path and my journey. But finding your spirit, reconnecting, and kind of being able to elevate yourself is definitely the platform that I've just been kind of striving towards. I'm not going to limit myself into thinking I can do one thing. I'm not going to think that the one thing that was tragic in my life is going to define me. I'm not going to allow trauma to be a part of weighing me down. So I think that all women have those stories. And I think if I can, bring the beauty out of that trauma time and make it be a celebration of spirit, that's kind of my mission in life.
I love that. And if I remember correctly, you brought a gift for the girls and it was a deck of cards, correct? It was
Yeah,
crystals, right? Crystals and different rocks and stones. I remember that because we did the wellness workshop with Whitley
right.
and we all got to draw the cards and keep the cards. And I still have that card
I love that.
actually.
I love that.
I'm very sentimental and I kept it because it really did relate to me. And I was like,
That's awesome.
wow, like mind blown. So I love that you are so authentically you, even in a space where us being authentically ourselves is like, it's like you don't see women that, do the healing stuff and are tattoo artists and do henna in the pageant world yet, and you're
No,
kind of breaking that door down. I love it.
no, it's like, but I also surprised like all of my clients when they're like, wait, you're doing what? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm just doing this thing. And to be honest, like being a tattoo artist, I cannot dress up. Every single day my clothes get ruined because of tattoo ink, and I'm always like in my studio, and I was like, I'm gonna do this thing where I can dress up and I can look like, try to feel like the most beautiful I can, try to represent myself, because I never get to. And that's exciting and that's fun because it's not something I can do every day. It's just something where I thought this will be really fun to celebrate a different part of who I am inside. And I love fashion and I love body art and I love I have my BFA in photography. So there's lots of things that, like, I used to go to modeling school when I was 16, and I was in Miss Teen New York when I was 16. And so I was like, okay, I know I was 16 when I did this, but why the hell not now? It's okay, like, that I haven't done anything like this since I was young. Let's go for it, like, this many years later. Why not?
I feel like that's a common like seed that's planted because I also did modeling school when I was 16, and I started to like dip my toes in the modeling world, and I did um one of my first pageants when I was 17, 18 at that border, and that was something that I always kind of held on to, was that like dream. And so I had a moment where in my life I was postpartum and I was like struggling with identity, which we talked a little bit. You experienced, that identity struggle. I was struggling with identity, and that's how I wound finding myself back in pageantry, was going, you know what? Who cares that I'm 30, whatever? I want to go try and accomplish this dream that I've had since I was a teenager. So we have a very similar kind of journey and experience getting back to pageantry. And I love that because it's a really cool feeling when you're trying to live out something that you maybe started when you were younger but didn't get to fully complete. Do you feel like it's like chasing that childhood dream almost a little bit while celebrating who you are now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting talking to you because, like, I'm having these little, like, flashbacks and, like, just like thinking about what I said, and I was like, yeah, thinking in my head, like, when I was in Miss Teen New York, like, I was the only brown girl on stage. Like, and I definitely didn't feel comfortable. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to win. Nobody looks like me. And it wasn't even about winning. It just was like, you feel other. And so, like, now that, like, I'm older and wiser and feeling like it doesn't matter, I can represent who I am and I can feel embodied and I can feel um okay with who I am as an individual. I don't have to look a certain way. I don't have a skinny body. I'm not even 5'4". So, like, it's okay. All of those, things don't matter to me anymore. It's about feeling good on the inside and just like allowing that just to be what it is and not like have any judgments.
Love that. And having it's surreal having those kind of flashes. And it's funny because I almost had the opposite experience. Like you're sitting here thinking back to when you felt other when you were younger, and I was the opposite. I was more of a traditional beauty when I was younger. I was very thin. I had that model look. Obviously, I did the modeling stuff. So I was the blonde haired, blue eyed, thin model type when I was 16, and I used to joke with my husband all the time that I peaked in high school. And now I'm older, I'm curvier. And I had an experience recently. I did Citrus International, which was a great experience, but that is a much different pageant system than International Ms. International Ms. is all about what we're doing to empower others. And, so much of our score is the behind the scenes stuff, the work that you're putting in, your interview. And Citrus is very much what you put on stage and what you look like. And I
Right.
had a moment where I was like, I felt other. I was like, if you put me next to a stereotypical pageant looking woman, I don't have a chance. And that kind of hit me. And was, it's taken a lot to kind of bounce back from that. I'm over it now, but I did have a moment in time where I experienced that other feeling, and it's a very surreal feeling. So I
Right.
had the opposite. I was like younger, I was fine. But then as I've gotten older, I've kind of been going through that. So it's interesting to hear your perspective where you flash back to that moment in time and you felt other. And I think it's great that now you're able to be in the pageant world as an adult. And also, does it make you feel happy when you see? Because we had a lot of diversity in International Ms.
I
last
was just
year.
going to say that.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, and like I'm good friends with Whitley. I've
I
tattooed
love
Whitley.
Whitley.
I've
I'm
known her for
obsessed with Whitley.
quite some time, and so she definitely was an inspiration. And I was like, I felt kind of locked in here in Maine. I was like, I want to abroad, and I want to meet other women. I want to like kind of see other things. I met like Miss India and Miss Mexico and Serena, and like I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I love these women. And they're so amazing and they're so welcoming and kind. And Miss Puerto Rico, I met then. And like, it was just really wonderful to kind of just like see the diversity and feel like I'm good. I didn't feel like as other there. I felt like
Yeah.
there's short girls here, there's brown girls here, there's girls of all different cultures, and even meeting Mrs. UK, who won. We went on the little outing together and she was amazing. And so it was just like really lovely to see all the incredible women and how different they all were as individuals.
International Ms. was a giant melting pot, and I absolutely loved it. There was so much diversity, there was so much inclusion, and I really felt like it was not a competition. I know pageantry is like supposed to be this big competition, but I really felt like our class specifically, and I'm sure other classes were this way as well, but when I was sitting at the table with the women of 2024, I felt like I was among friends and we were all so different and brought such different things to the table that it was a really cool, it was like, wow, I earned a spot in this room. Just being there was a very
Right.
surreal feeling. And you're right. There was, I mean, so many different experiences. I love Essence, who is Mrs. Midwest. She rode with me to Icon for our outing.
Nice.
Loved her. And yeah, Dima Hendricks was amazing. I don't know what she's up to. Dima, I'm going to have to get with you because I miss you. But there were so many just different walks of life. And
Right.
you were very influential. I don't know if you realize this or not, but you have a very like healing and calming energy as a person. And when we were in the wellness workshop, I remember feeling that about you, especially when you did like the crystal thing. That was so cool. And it was just it made this calmness and this grounding feeling. So I am
Well, and I was so nervous
I
about that.
love it.
Oh, I'm gonna be the weirdo that brings in my
No,
my crystal. I brought the crystal oracle deck because I created it, and I was like, I wanted to share, part of my business with women, but also I wanted to bring a little bit of grounding and also share a one-on-one experience within the group. And, I was actually pleasantly surprised at the response of people and how they loved it. So, and I was like, okay, cool. That was good.
I think International Ms. really does celebrate authenticity. I mean, a lot of us brought completely different energies, but we were all ourselves and it was very genuine and it was not that forced kind of feeling you can get with some other systems where you have to be a certain way or look a certain way or act a certain way. International Ms. was just like, come one, come all as you are, and we're
Right.
going to celebrate it. And it was very authentic. And I loved that energy. And it was really cool to see it, and you were a breath of fresh air. You really were, because there's something really cool about walking into a space and pageantry. People have preconceived notions about pageantry and what we should look like and what we should be and who we should be. And when I walk in and I see someone like yourself who is unique in yourself and you love yourself and you're celebrating yourself and you bring that extra energy to the group, that you may not expect. It's so refreshing, and it was really a cool feeling. So even though we didn't get to interact, I feel like you have a very contagious energy. Your
Oh, that's
presence, like
super
you
sweet.
can't not notice you, and I absolutely love that.
So I have to just share with you because I didn't get to connect with you after, but I loved your confidence, and I one loved your gown, and I was like really happy because I knew that you had talked about being curvy, and I loved that you made top 10, and I was just like my little inner voice was going like I was like, good, we're gonna break these molds. And I've gone through perimenopause. I've gone through like gaining weight, and not being able to like whatever the pre-baby weight, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't, like, one of my friends is like, Mary, you fluctuate with weight, but you still wear whatever you want. And I was like, well, yeah, because I still want to celebrate who I am, and I don't care. I just want to be who I am and feel good no matter what. So I think that like it's important, like, even when I'm going to the mall and I'm like, oh, finally, there's like a thicker freaking mannequin, for God's sakes. Nobody looks like that. Or a curvy girl, bra and panty ad. Oh, finally. Like,
Finally.
geez, freaking finally. It's like, it's kind of sad, but like, it's like the little baby steps have been happening in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I, and it makes me feel confident too, thinking like, okay, I don't have to think about, I need to stress and I need to like lose 15, 20 pounds and look the best I have to be in this gown. And like, no, I can just feel who I'm going to be. I can work on goals, but I don't have to think I have to fit into this cookie cutter. It's like the opposite of how we can support one another in the world as role models and just women supporting women.
I love that. And yeah, the concept of the way everybody supported each other, and it's a crazy feeling being in an industry where size matters to a lot of people, and getting out there and showing that it doesn't matter, because it was definitely a wild experience. But I think it's a great testament to our system and how great Laura Clark is as a director, that she has these systems that let us celebrate our bodies the way that they are, and we
Yeah.
don't feel pressured to get to a certain size, and we're able to, like you said, your body's gone through a lot. I've had 3 kids and I've been diagnosed with PCOS, and so my weight, it is what it is.
Right.
I'm not going to take medication to change my body just because of the size. And I'm not going to, drastically diet or do anything crazy to drop the weight. So I actually made a post today about not focusing on losing weight, but focusing on gaining confidence. Because I'll tell you what, I have had so much more attention being a curvier woman because my confidence level is higher than I ever got when I was thin. So I think it really
Yeah.
speaks to the importance of confidence and loving yourself and being comfortable in your skin. Because if a woman with my body type could get second runner up for Mrs. USA, that means we're headed in the right direction, at least in the systems that allow you to celebrate your body the way it is. And I have to give huge kudos to Whitley, actually, for kind of paving the way with International Ms. Because Whitley is the woman that I saw on the stage and went, if they will crown her, who doesn't? I love Whitley. She's stunning, but her whole platform is about breaking beauty standards and breaking molds and being authentically yourself. So I was like, oh my gosh, they put a crown on Whitley's head. I have a chance here. It was almost like this safety net feeling seeing Whitley on that stage. And then for Laura as a director, having this space where women can have that safety net and know that they're coming to compete, and she's not instructing them to look for the thinnest woman or the woman who looks the best. She's genuinely looking for international Ms. and who's empowering and all of the amazing things that she's looking for in us. So it's amazing that we have this system and that we're able to be ourselves. And I'm able to be confident and curvy, and you're able to be confident and brown and celebrate yourself as you are. It's a really cool feeling. And I don't know, I'd have a really hard time leaving this system.
One of the things that you had just mentioned that I was like, I think one of the things as women is when we start talking about our bodies and we start talking about our health and we start talking about the difficulties, whether it's PCOS, like I'm an endo warrior, I've had 2 surgeries, like endometriosis is an invisible disease, and the swelling and the puffiness and the bloating and all that stuff. That's not, if I don't talk about that, that is never going to become a platform for women, that have struggled with, their female anatomy and problems. About, yeah, I'm not going to fit into a size 10. Yeah, no, I'm not going to fit into a size 12. Because I've had surgeries, because I've had this disease, or because I'm overcoming these things that I've struggled with. Those are conversations that need to happen, because the opposite of that, of trying to fit into a mold or trying to fit into this idealized beauty, is toxic.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree 100% that having those conversations and bringing those things to light. And I think it's really important that we're out there pioneering and doing that. Pageantry is so much more than just looking pretty on a stage. Yeah, we have fun in our evening gowns. Don't get us wrong. Like, we have fun in our evening gowns with our high heels and getting our makeup done, but it's so much more that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize, that we're really advocating for and empowering others. What would you say is, like, if somebody was going to find Mary at the end of the tunnel, she's the light at the end of the tunnel, what would your optimistic message, what would your light at the end of the tunnel kind of sentiment be for a woman that's struggling?
She's not alone, and that to find safety within herself, and to trust her intuitive being, and to go inward. I feel like we find the most magic within ourselves when we're quiet and we can listen and trust ourselves. And when we start dismissing the inner voice, when we start dismissing our truths, and trusting ourselves, that's when we steer away from our spirits. So, that would be like what I try to illuminate for people, is to go within.
That is a really important message. I think too many women don't listen to that intuition, and my intuition has never led me astray. So I think that's really important advice that you've given, and people really need to listen to that.
Right.
What is your definition of confidence? So I love asking people this because, being someone that teaches confidence workshops, I always ask this and I hear a million different definitions of confidence. So I want to know what Mary's definition of confidence is.
I think confidence for me stems from a place of feeling like you're not thinking about yourself. You're not overly concerned about how you sound, how you look. You're not only authentic, but you're feeling free. You're feeling free to be who you are without that self deprecating voice. So when you're able to be confident, to approach whatever it is that's in front of you, whether it's socially or within a job or within a marriage or within your friendship, I think being able to find comfort within oneself is the epitome of confidence. Because when you shy away from loving who you are as an individual, that's when you start creating fractions within the self.
I think that is probably one of my all-time favorite definitions, to be honest. I That was so profound, and wow, like, it's like inner peace. That's what the thought that came to my mind when you were saying that was confidence meaning finding inner peace with yourself. And that is such a unique take on it. And I absolutely love that. It's like when you stop looking for that external validation is the epitome of confidence. And that is, I love that. That was,
Well, I think that gets back to the idea of being comfortable in your skin
yeah,
and being comfortable with who you are in the world and allowing that to be unfolded and being, not only vulnerable, but being able for other people to truly see you.
that is amazing. I love that. That is very special, a very special definition and thought. Something I wanted to mention too, because we've talked a lot about, you know, skin tone diversity and size diversity and inclusion and all of these things. I want to talk about your line of work for a second because you are a tattoo artist, which again, tattoos are not something that you saw in pageantry ever
I know.
years ago. Now it's becoming I mean, I'm fully like tattooed and I have a huge side piece that is not shown very often, but I know I've rocked a bikini on a pageant stage being all tattooed, and a lot of the younger girls will say, "Are you going to cover your tattoos for your pageant?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not, because they're my artwork and you're either going to take
No.
me with them or you're going to not take me at all." So, how does it feel being not only someone who obviously has tattoos, but is a tattoo artist that contributes to that? And I feel like you're kind of a pioneer of adding confidence to people because I know I rock out of the new tattoo studio when I've got something
Yeah, and
new.
you're like,
My
whoa, it's
confidence is like,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, you're like, whoa, check out my ink. Yeah.
look at my ink.
Yes,
Is
yes.
that a cool feeling being someone that gets to empower others with a new confidence over their body? I'm sure it's the same with henna too, right?
Yeah. I love body art. You know, part of me was like thinking when I competed, I was like, okay, would it be weird if I like painted my body and wore my evening gown? Like go like that extra mile, like and be expressive. But I think that, tattoos can be such a beautiful expression of oneself. But definitely, I think women with ink and women showing their ink with pride is definitely something that's new within the last, even 5 years. I've been a tattoo artist professionally for 10 years. And, I think the most beautiful thing for me, as an artist is when I've created a piece for someone, whether it's scar cover up from self harm scars or mastectomy scars, or a woman who like just didn't love a certain part of their body, or from having a C-section. There's lots of ways that tattooing can bring back like energy because those are energy exchanges. As a healer and as I do my work, I'm having those conversations with people. We're not necessarily just putting a piece of art on your skin, we're having a shared experience. I'm creating for you, you're receiving, you're then we're going out into the world and you're showing that expression of who you are. And so I think the idea of tattoos are also kind of turning that tide of understanding what they truly mean. And there's some bad art out there. Don't get me wrong. But like, I do feel like that definitely it was a concern. I was like, oh no, do I get a dress that covers my sleeves? Like, what do I show? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to think, well, she doesn't fit the mold? And I'm like, no, I do. And women are changing.
I love that. And the confidence hearing you say, "No, I do." Like that was like a full circle moment right there. That was like that moment of imposter syndrome. Nope, I do. Belong here and people need to hear that because we're not shrinking to make others comfortable. We're showing up as we are and that's good enough.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I feel like tattoos are a segue of conversation. So,
Yeah.
when people share their ink stories or share why they got something done, it automatically kind of creates a bridge. So, and that's what art can do. And so I feel like that's a part of their own storytelling.
Absolutely. I feel like my tattoos are almost like time capsules on my body, if that makes sense. Because I can tell you, I remember what I was going through at that point in my life with each tattoo that I've gotten. I have my baby's footprints on my feet. So as they grow, they're always walking with me in their little
Mm.
newborn, baby form. I have my parents' handwriting when I held my mom as she died and luckily was resuscitated. But I had her handwriting put on me after that. Still She Rose. I have my rose showing transformation budding into who I am now. And ironically, I got that before I got involved
Before it's still
in
she
Pose.
rose. Yeah, that's
So I
awesome.
was like, look, I have your
You're
emblem on me.
you're like, literally, I get this.
Right? And this is like your journey, my journey. See? But it's very true. They're like time capsules. They're expressions of what we're going through. And I've always thought of how cool it is to have them, but I've never really gotten to think of the tattoo artist side and your experience on the other end of that. So thank you for sharing that insight because it's really cool and it's nice hearing when it's someone like yourself that you can tell you love that and you care about your clients. It's not just like, oh, I'm just, tattooing so and so. The way you explained the energy exchange and the process. I think we need more artists like you, quite frankly, that understand the gravity of what you're doing and how intimate it really is. People don't understand how intimate tattoos are,
Very
what that
intimate. Yeah.
experience is. It's a
Yes.
very intimate experience, and we need more tattoo artists like yourself that celebrate that intimacy and are comfortable with that and look at it as art, but also an experience for that person. It's a very
Yeah, I think that it is slowly changing. The industry is slowly changing, and that's why my studio, it's like a light and a bright studio. It's a safe space, and I do incorporate healing aspects into my work. And I always say to my clients, like, thank you, because if you didn't show up, you're not giving me the opportunity to create. So it is a mutual exchange. It's not just like my job. Like, you're offering your body for me to continue to grow as an artist. So, like, if I don't have these opportunities, like, I'm not going to continue to shift and grow unless the opportunity continues to present itself. So, it is mutual.
I absolutely love that. And it's an interesting take on something that people don't think about. I feel like your life purpose, I'm giving you a life purpose right now. That sounds so weird, but like I feel like your life purpose is honestly bringing awareness in a way that I don't think people understand how much we need someone like you. I mean, the way you're able to enlighten me in just this conversation on what it's like to be on the other side of adoption and how important it is to not take your history and your identity and your family for granted. Also, I'm the tattooed person and you're giving me the perspective as the tattoo artist. So I feel like you are one of those people that a lot of people can learn from. And I'm so excited that I got to interview you for the podcast because I think your insight and your perspective is kind of mirrored from what a lot of people experience. And hearing that dialogue and having that conversation is extremely helpful for others. So I appreciate your openness and how much you're sharing of yourself with people because people need that perspective. It's so easy to live in our little bubble and think about how life is through our eyes, but to hear it from someone else that can enlighten is a really powerful experience. So I definitely
Thank you so
appreciate the
much.
fact that you were able to spend this time with me. Because I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this conversation on a lot of levels. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I've enjoyed our time and getting to like have a little bit more one-on-one with you. I definitely followed your Instagram and like, oh, look what you're doing. Look at all this. but it's different to kind of set some time aside and have a real heart to heart and get to know the other women that you are competing with and like really like share time and space on a different wavelength. And I think that's another level of like why I'm doing this. So like creating more opportunities for women to connect. And I think, I'm just grateful. So thank you.
Absolutely. We're pioneers. We're both pioneering in our own ways. And that's the fun part about being in pageantry and kind of getting to make that path for others. Like I said in my post earlier today, if you don't have that seat at that table, you start a new table, you forge a path where you need one. It's kind of, we're out here doing things. And I
Yeah.
love it. My final question for you, because what I usually ask, I'm not asking because I already know what you're taking a second chance at title wise because you're competing for International Miss. So, my last question is other than myself, because I am the second chance queen. If we could designate any famous person, celebrity, musician, historical figure, you name it, as an honorary second chance queen, what would Mary's honorary second chance queen be?
Whoa, that's an interesting one. I was thinking of Rosie Perez for some reason. And it's so funny because all I can remember as like a little girl watching her is that I thought she was a badass. And like watching her in films and she was Latina and she was from like the Bronx and she was just like so hard and like told people how what it was like and like I was just like that woman just she means business. And so like I think like back then in the 80s too, like that was kind of just like I always looked to role models like, for me like Jennifer Lopez. I was like, "Oh, she's Latin, she's Puerto Rican." Like, J-Lo's already made it big, but Rosie Perez, she had sass, she had attitude. Like I think embodying like that like spirit of fire, like for me, like I think, she deserves a second chance to be celebrated. And like, I don't know how old she is now, but I think for back then, she was a pioneer for like women of color in New York. And in that time frame, kind of one of the first few women on the screen that had that kind of like that vibe. So
I love that.
that's who popped into my head.
You know what? We're going with it. I love it. And it's so cool to get the different perspectives of why people choose their person. If you became famous tomorrow for a published quote, what would you want the world to have as your quote?
One of the things that I would like identify with is the spark of the divine is always a place to empower the soul.
Very deep. I love
Well, you
that.
asked me to go deep.
I know. I love that. I get so blown away when people give me deep answers because, like, I get a range of all sorts of things. I get the like bubbly, superficial stuff, and then someone like you hits me with these deep things, and I'm like, my goodness, mesmerized. I love it. Thank you for joining me tonight, Mary. I hope all of you enjoy watching Mary on her journey to International Miss in September of 2025. We will be rooting for you as a Sash sister. And I am absolutely in love with Mary's energy, everything that she brings to the pageantry world, everything that she does in her everyday life, in her career. She's a very empowering and inspiring woman. I wish her all the luck, all the success, all the positive things in the world. And I can't wait to see where this journey takes her. I hope you enjoyed getting to know Mary as much as I did tonight. And thank you for joining us on tonight's episode of the Second Chance Queen podcast. I'm Kristianna Mrjenovich. And remember, you always have a second chance. You just have to be willing to take it.